Hey, Chandler Bolt here, and joining me today is Lisa Nichols. Now, Lisa is one of the world's most requested motivational speakers, as well as a media personality and corporate CEO. Her global platform has reached and served nearly 30 million people, and she's been featured on Oprah, The Today Show, The Steve Harvey Show, and in the documentary The Secret. She also has 6 best-selling books, including her New York Times best-selling book, No Matter What, and her 7th book, Abundance Now, was just released this January. I'm super excited about this interview. Lisa is just hilarious. She's a bundle of energy and a whole lot of fun. So I know that we're going to have a lot of fun, and we're going to get to some really good stuff in this interview. So Lisa, I'm so excited to have you here.
Oh, thank you so much, Chandler. I'm so excited to be with you.
Well, to start, I want to kind of take it back. Obviously have the successful career in speaking, and we were talking before the interview, you're burning up the road right now, 7 countries in 6 months this year, 31 engagements or 70 something engagements, or something. I couldn't even keep up, right? So you're doing all this speaking. So I want to take it back to like why books, and especially what made you decide to write your first book?
Wow. First of all, I think books are an amazing contribution to society because it allows people to learn from you, be touched by you, be inspired by you while you're doing other things. It memorializes a conversation. It puts a conversation, in print so you could see it, touch it. It makes it tactile. There's just something, there's something that a book gives you that nothing else can give you. It doesn't, you can go and revisit the moment, go and revisit the expression, go and revisit the inspiration again and again and again. In book form, you can highlight it. You can remember what was important to you. I used to read other people's books who I admired. I would read the books that they were reading so that I could see what they highlighted. I want to see what really smart people highlighted. So books can't be compared to speaking. They can't be compared to videos. While they may be disseminating and providing the same information, inspiration, transformation, it's in such a unique format and such a necessary format that it's in a world all by itself. So I never think speaking or writing. I always think and. I don't think speaking or writing. I don't think one comes without the other. I think if you have a message and you want that message to have the greatest impact, then a book, a literary journey should be in your path. Regardless of all the other ways you plan to do it, a literary journey should be in your path. When people say, oh, I'm not a good writer. What I learned a long time ago with my first book, I'll get to your question, with my first book that I co-authored, Chicken Soup for the African American Soul, I learned very early on that I didn't have to be great at grammar. I needed to have a great message. And someone out there, somewhere, they love editing. I mean, they're all into the semicolons and colons and periods and punctuations. Not me, but someone. So my first book, Chicken Soup, and it was a very difficult journey. I don't know if you know, but when Chicken Soup for the Soul asked me to co-author, and co-authoring a book with them is a writing experience. It's not easy. It took me 3.5 years to finish the first book. I declined Jack Canfield when he first asked me to be the co-author. And then someone called and asked me a second time would I co-author the book, and I declined a second time. Then that same person called a third time and asked me. And yes, I declined the third time. And then they called a fourth time, believe it or not. This happened over 5 months. They called a fourth time and said, Miss Nichols, Jack Canfield really, really believes that you'll be a great author. And I said, oh no, I'm really busy being a CEO and a single mom. And at the time, I was really busy being broke. I had no business. I was not nearly in the demand that I'm in now. And so on the 5th time, yes, 5 times they called. So I'm speaking to every single person out there who knows that you have a message in your belly, but you have trepidation about the process of writing. I know you hear that I have 7 books I've authored, a combination between authored and co-authored 7 books. And people would think, oh, she loves writing. that wasn't my original come from space at all. So I want to start this interview off very candid and very transparent. I said no 5 times. And on the 5th call, the woman said something that disrupted me. She goes, Miss Nichols, you seem like you're a smart businesswoman. So I'm not sure why you're saying no to chicken soup for the soul. You know that they're in the Guinness Book of World Records as being the longest standing best-selling series in the history of any series, correct? And I immediately felt like she was calling me dumb, which I think she was. And in my defense, I started rambling really fast, and the truth jumped out of my mouth without my authorization. I said, "Well, I'm busy. I'm scared," and scared actually jumped out of my mouth, Chandler. And
Wow.
And yeah. And so she said, "I invite you to look at why you're afraid." And while I regretted saying it out loud, I couldn't take back that I said it. And so I had to look at why I was afraid. And I was afraid because I was already semi-successful as a speaker. And I felt like people would judge my writing. I felt like I didn't know where the semicolon went. And I didn't know where the period went. I'm a run-on sentence mama. I'm still, 15 years later, I am a run-on sentence mama. I will not put a period until I finish my thought. But that's why you have editors. And so my first book, Chicken Soup for the African American Soul, took me 3.5 years to write my stories and collect other stories that were powerful enough to make that book an instant bestseller. And I signed over 10,500 copies on my tour. So it was a wildly successful book, but it was the most difficult book for me to get the courage to write. Fast forward several books. I did Chicken Soup for the African American Woman's Soul, and then I was a part of The Secret. The Secret was easy because I orated that book. That was the first time I realized that you can speak your passion, speak your thoughts, speak your heart, and then someone else can transcribe it, and then you pull it together and clean it up. That was an aha moment for me, a new way to birth a book. And all of a sudden, it wasn't as painful as I thought that it would be. The book that felt like I was birthing a child at every level was No Matter What, because that was the first book with me by myself. And I didn't know whether society, the world, wanted to hear from me by myself. I'd been coupled with Chicken Soup. I've been coupled with The Secret. So I felt like I was positioned between these mega men and these mega celebrities. Yep. And No Matter What I was like, oh my God, I cried. I cried writing some of the chapters because I knew in order to tell my story of triumph, I had to tell my story of tragedy. I knew in order to tell my story of testimony, I had to tell you the tests that I was in. In order to tell you my story of opportunity, I had to show you my biggest obstacles. I knew that I had to live that book. And I remember lighting a candle every time I got ready to write so that the light and the fire could inspire me. And I cried as I typed. I cried as I typed. I cried as I talked to my co-author and as she helped me to get my story out because I was scared. I was scared in that book for a different reason than I was afraid in the first book. And I guess I'm sharing this with you, Chandler, because we can always talk about how-tos. But what my biggest liberations were the overcoming what was in here, the giving myself permission. The last time I took an English class in college, I got a fail. And my English teacher told me, quote, in front of the entire classroom, "Miss Nichols, you are the weakest writer I have ever met in my entire life." Did you know that?
Wow.
You didn't know that? Like I've told that story on stage.
I heard it on the Steve Harvey interview, which is
yeah.
a speaking thing, right?
Yeah, it was my English teacher said that I was the weakest writer she had ever met in her entire life. That exact same year, my speech teacher told me that I should get a desk job and never speak in public. So I was afraid that what they thought about me was true. And if they thought that about me, I should never be an author. I should never be a speaker. And so if you want to know my biggest obstacles and my biggest like overcoming opportunities was me believing that Lisa Nichols, who got a fail in English and a D- in speech, could actually be an author. And that even though I knew my English teacher was true in some ways, I may not have been the weakest writer she ever met, though she said I was a weak writer. Like I was Chandler, a weak writer, meaning my grammar wasn't strong, but my stories were powerful. And once I did the distinction, Chandler, and I separated the ability to tell a great story, to have a great message, from where the heck I put the freaking period, where I put the freaking comma, when I separated those two, then I gave myself permission to write a book and to write several books and to be a best-selling author.
Now, how did you get over the initial fear? Because that's one thing, right? The initial fear to write the first book. And then how did that, because you talked about the difference between that fear and then, because everybody relates to this, right? The imposter syndrome of the second time around of like, oh yeah, I did it successfully, but I had co-authors or I was in a book with other people. Like I can't do it myself.
Yeah.
How did you get over those two different fears?
Well, I appreciate your question because I think mine was really huge because my first book out was with Chicken Soup for the Soul. You don't get any bigger than that, except for my second book out was The Secret, which was an international phenomenon. It wasn't an international hit. It was an international phenomenon. It's in the Guinness Book of World Records as well as being the most widespread single product to touch the most variety of people. So it was translated into 162 different languages in the first 18 months. So there was a little sweat coming off of my forehead when I went, okay, so how do you like follow up Chicken Soup and The Secret, And both of them were co-author events. So I appreciate you asking that question because I was shaking in my boots with fear. Plus, let's just look at the obvious. I'm an African-American woman. So you look at self-development, and self-development is a white male-dominated industry with a few women sprinkled here and a few people of color sprinkled here, but a woman of color to do something big. And they thought initially that they didn't want to have my face on the cover because they thought having my face on the cover as an African-American woman could deter people from reading it. And I took a stand to go, wait a minute, we are not the same society as in the Jim Crow days. We're not the same society as in the 1950s and 1940s. We are a society that looks at the human spirit. And my skin, that covers my human spirit, but I believe people want to touch my heart and touch my soul. And so I had to push back on the cover. I'm like, if we don't have me on the cover, let's not have me on the cover for another reason. But let's not have me on the cover to hide me. I am not hiding. I didn't come this far to hide from anybody. So there was a lot of scary things going on there. And I got to tell you, Chandler, I'm going to probably surprise you. I didn't wait to overcome the fear to write. I just held my fear in one hand and my passion and conviction in the other hand. And I just jumped anyway. So I wrote the book still feeling like I took it to the publisher. I waited for the release date. But I was willing to hold fear in one hand and my passion and conviction in the other hand. And I was willing to do it with my knees knocking and my teeth chattering. And then what I realized, Chandler, was that momentum dissipates fear. You never will dissipate your fear thinking about how can I dissipate my fear. Like you don't dissipate fear thinking, how can I remove my fear? You remove fear by being in action in the direction of your passion and your conviction. I'll say that again because someone needs to hear it twice. You remove fear by moving and being in action in the direction of your passion and your convictions and your heart and your soul and being in service. I knew that the book, that particular book, was going to liberate some people. Same as the book that I just released now, Abundance Now. Abundance Now is my biggest book ever. It's my biggest book ever. It has the widest reach. You know, it talks about going from a crawl to a walk, from a walk to a run, and from a run to a soar. That book is the book that will be my life's work, Abundance Now. And I was still nervous when that came out. I was like, oh my God, HarperCollins published it, and it's supposed to be a major seller, and it's got and the day before it was released, Amazon had completely sold out of every single book they had. The day before it was released, like, they didn't believe that I wasn't buying all my own books. They didn't believe that people were actually going to buy the book. And it was because, though I was still afraid, I focused not on this hand, the fear, but I focused on this hand, the passion and the conviction. And so I don't think when you're playing big, that won't be a time where fear isn't present. I just think that we need to give ourselves uber permission to leap with fear being present. And because when you do that, you actually minimize fear into the nothingness that it always was. Because fear, Chandler, really, and think about this. This is so beautiful. It's such a beautiful understanding. And I'm so grateful that I got it. Fear is us making up a story about what we think will happen in the future. Fear is us freaking making up a story. We're making up a story of what we think might happen in the future. And we think about that story enough, so much so that we bring life into that story, and then we can feel it physically in our body. Well, here's the deal. If we can make up that story and it can create a feeling, then we can make up another story and that can create a feeling. And so I've just become really mindful that my fears come from my story that I made up. And not that I don't have to be have caution, but I also have to realize that I made up the story. And so I just monitor the stories I make up these days. I still make them up. I just monitor the ones I make up.
Love it. Now, I want to switch gears a little bit and talk about some marketing and kind of the difference that you saw from those first two books and how that created your business and the momentum that you have and the marketing that you've done with your most recent books.
Okay, so you have to know that I am like a marketing maniac.
Love it. Me too.
I am a marketing maniac. I go rogue. I go wild. I do guerrilla marketing. I read the blueprint of what the marketer, what it's supposed to be, and then I make up stuff. Like marketing is about how creative, how radical, how hungry can you show yourself to be. So the first two books, I'll just call them the Chicken Soup series. I kind of did something. I kind of did something really wild on that one. I still teach this to my students because I didn't know anything back in the Chicken Soup days. All I knew was that my son was 5 years old and mama needed to bring home a paycheck. Mm-hmm. And I didn't have a paycheck because I become an entrepreneur. And so I then knew that I had to figure out a way. So let me just give you some of the most successful marketing things that I did. May I do that?
Love it.
Okay. So guerrilla marketing all day long. So if you're reading any marketing books, Marketing 101, 201, and you don't find this in the marketing book, it's because I was doing guerrilla marketing and it just happened to work. And it's worked for me, and we've helped over 122 people become authors Of those, 89 have become best-selling authors. And so we love our guerrilla marketing strategies. So what I did with Chicken Soup was I sent a mailer out because I knew my market. So number one, I studied my market. So if you're writing down, you're taking notes, write this down, study your market. Who are you writing the book to? And who are they? And where do they gather, right? So I know that I'm a strong speaker, Chandler. I know that I can sell an Arab sand. I can sell a fish water. You know, I could sell. And I could sell without selling. You know, I could sell without selling. I can sell by sharing the excitement, sharing the possibility, sharing the benefit on the other side without saying, go buy my book. No. That's so old school. That's so like, choke me, kill me. Like, it's so boring. Like, be creative, right? So what I did is I studied my market. And for Chicken Soup for the African American Soul, the market was African Americans. So I was bold enough to tell my publishers that this book wouldn't be a success if I just marketed in bookstores, and if I just marketed online. I knew it wouldn't be a success because I knew that my market, that particular market, African Americans, unfortunately, they weren't beating down the doors to bookstores, and they weren't running out to Amazon necessarily buying books in the numbers that I wanted them to do that, right? So I tailored my entire tour around churches. And I went to churches. So I sent out a mass email asking the people that contributed to the book, can you help to get me in your church? Here are the parameters. And I set up the parameters. It needs to be at least 500 people. I need to be able to speak at least 6 minutes or more. I need to be able to have a book signing. And so I just sent a mass mailer out. 27 people responded, well, 35 people responded, 27 fit the parameter. And so I picked 27 places to go for this tour. So that was the bones of this tour. And then in every city that I already was in for a church, I then asked a private organization, can they have me speak at their Wednesday night meeting or at that? So I did that book, heavy live events, because that was all I really knew at the time, and I knew how to make that work. Then for book number 2, what I did was, that was Chicken Soup for the African American Woman Soul. I also did church, but then I added into it women's empowerment organizations, and I really penetrated the month of March, which is Women's Empowerment Month, Women's History Month, and I did the tour during that month. But I also coupled it with February, which is Black History Month, because it was African American. So I just thought way out of the box. My publishers didn't think that. They were just doing a regular tour. Let's start in June. I'm like, no. Let's wait. Let's wrap around to February and March. Let's put Black History Month together with Women History Month. And then let me search all these women empowerment organizations, social clubs. And I spoke every Wednesday night instead of Sunday at churches. I spoke Wednesday night because Wednesday night was the women's committee night in all these places. So it was really creative. Fast forward to No Matter What, which was the first book I did on my own, and Abundance Now. So in Abundance Now, I made Abundance Now a theme and a movement. So it's bigger than a book. It's a movement. What does abundance now mean? So I gave abundance now a new definition. I put this really hot video online about abundance now. Abundance now. We had music. Abundance now was a party at my house, and I stopped the Christmas party to do an Abundance Now moment because I had the DJ. I had the DJ in the background. I had the lights, and I had about 50 people and we're all singing Abundance Now, Abundance Now. And then I stopped, and while they're in the background going Abundance Now, I started talking to the camera. And mind you, we did it with like a regular like camera, right? An iPhone camera. And I said the new definition of abundance is that it's not just about money and possessions. Abundance is a 360 experience. It's about the whole life. It's about spirituality. It's about relationships. It's about money, and it's about health and wellness. And in the background, they're going, abundance now, abundance now. And I'm like, so now it's about going to get your abundance. It's about reshaping your life, reshaping your mind, and getting what's your birthright. Abundance is your birthright. Go get it. abundance now, abundance now. I got to tell you, it like went viral and everyone's singing abundance now. So I started with making it a more than a book, making it a lifestyle, making it a mindset, making it a movement, making it something that people want to talk about, something that people want to be a part of. And then I went and got Abundance Now ambassadors. And so I asked people to become the mouthpiece, not for the book, but for the movement. However, if you're going to be in the movement, you might want to get the book to understand what Abundance Now is about. So that's a few of my guerrilla marketing events. I really like live events. So I believe that when you give someone a great experience, I don't believe in hiding behind a book. I don't believe in putting the book out there and not allowing people to see and touch you. I believe those days are over. I believe there was a time when you didn't have to be a face. But people, we're now a social climate. We want social. We want connection. We want connectivity. We don't want another form of mail. We got snail mail, Twitter mail, text mail, email. We got all these mails. We want to touch now. We want to have this kind of connection. And so whether you do it via video because you don't want to get live in front of people, that's okay. Or whether you want to do it video and live, you need to be the stand and the mouthpiece for your message, not your book, but your message. So I think what I've done better than most and not as good as others is I've been a phenomenal mouthpiece for the content in my book. Now, let me tell you a secret from the secret lady. Let me tell you a secret of what's a real great game changer on the number of books that you move and the number of books that you put out is when you are bold enough to take someone into your book. And this is what I mean, Chandler. And I'm gonna guess that you're gonna begin to share this with more authors because it's just one of those things that I'm kind of seasoned at this. I've been doing it for over 21 years. I got a few books under my belt to kind of say this is how it works. So instead of saying, read my book, instead of saying, gosh, I wish I had a book somewhere near, I'm in my bedroom, so I don't know, I have books over there on my nightstand. Instead of saying, read the book, here's what you do. So, and I'm going to do this to you as if you were my audience, right? So one of my hardest moments, I hit in my life on page 52. And that's the time when it got really dark for me. And on page 52 to page 58, I talk about how did I muster up the courage. First, 52 and 53, I tell you how I got knocked down. And then from 53 to 58, I talk about how did I muster up the courage to give myself a second chance for the 15th time. And then I tell you about the 3 critical things that I had to do to stand back up. The only other time that I had to go that deep inside was on page 258, when I talk about how did I transform my financial reality. How did I, on page 258, I begin to tell you, how did I identify my financial blueprint? How did I look at my money mindset and how my money mindset was stopping me from having wealth? And then you fast forward and get to page like 275. I talk about the 3 critical things that I did on 275, 76, 77, and 78 that changed my, you see what I'm doing?
Mm-hmm.
Is that not juicy?
I love it. That's fantastic.
Can I tell you, that's why I autographed 10,500 books on my tour, because knowing nothing, I didn't even know this. It wasn't even like a brilliant piece of genius someone told me. I was just so excited about the book that I started highlighting pages. And then people would come up to me to autograph the book and they go, now what was that page when your child needs help? I go, yeah. What was that page when you're overcoming a loss of a loved one? Like people would literally walk up to me and want me to write the page down. What was funny was I was autographing the book and Mark Victor Hansen, which was the co-author with Jack Canfield for Chicken Soup for the Soul. Mark Victor Hansen was right next to me and he's getting really angry at me because he's like, what are you doing? This is taking too long. Well, we had about 653 people in line to buy books. And so he really didn't want people asking questions about what page and what page and what page. And so he was getting frustrated. So I said, listen, Mark, I'm here to help people. You're here to autograph books. So why don't you go in front of me and you autograph books and you can be done. And they can ask me questions about the pages afterwards. And that day he told me I taught him something. He said that he had autographed so many books and had been doing this so long that he forgot that it was about people. And so you wanna sell and move more books, take people into your book. Don't talk about the book. Talk about the page and the message on the page, and know your book. Go inside and read your book, and then make notes about this. You only have to make about 3 notes about 3 different pages. On page 56, I covered this. 156, only if you want to know. So 156 was a time when I was dealing with post-traumatic stress disorder. So if anyone in this room is battling with depression, or battling with feeling sad, or battling with PTSD, skip page 1 through 71 and just go right to page 72. Skip the other pages and go right there. All of a sudden, the book is no longer a book. The book becomes a prescription and an answer to your problems. And all of a sudden, the book comes alive.
I love that. That's so great. Now, I want to switch gears a little bit. How have you leveraged these books? Because you've been on TV so much, it's prepping for this interview, and it's like all these TV clips of you doing your thing. How did you leverage these books to get so many TV appearances?
Wow. You're right. I've been on television a lot, so there's so many different examples where some weren't TV, some weren't books, some TV appearances I was able to get because I made the previous TV experience so juicy. So I'm going to give you a couple of layers. Okay. So book, the way I made book open up television opportunity is I spoke to something that was happening in the climate currently, and how this book speaks to that climate. So one, I made sure I was news ready. I was news aware. I can find anything in my book to touch something that's in the news, like anything. Like, you got to be creative, but I deal with personal development. So news is about chaos and drama, and so I would find something relevant in the news that was relevant in my book. So with No Matter What, my book No Matter What came out in 2008 and 9. And so that's when the recession was hitting. And so in this time of recession, people need to understand how to say no matter what, and not allow the financial climate of America to impact the quality of your life. Listen to the author of No Matter What, right? I would shape the story. I wouldn't leave it to my PR person. I wouldn't leave it to I never, ever left it to television to find the hook, because they're looking for the hook. I never left it to them. I looked at what they were talking about, and I wrote several hooks for them. I wrote several hooks on how I was a fit for that marketing. So I put on whatever hat I needed to put on. I don't know if you heard Jay-Z's song, I'm a hustler, baby, and I want you to know, right? It ain't where I've been, but where I'm about to go. Like, right? And so I was willing to constantly do guerrilla marketing. And so when Abundance Now came out, then I started speaking to the new climate of entrepreneurs, and how your generation, you're a millennial, right? And how millennials are all about creating abundance for themselves. So let's talk to the author of Abundance Now, Lisa Nichols, about how can we create more wealth for ourselves, and more holistic wealth now more than ever, coming out of an economic recession. Right? So like, I just made my conversation relevant for what they're talking about, and I would stretch it as far as when people are talking about relationships. I'd say the new currency in abundance is about relationships and community. Right? Author Lisa Nichols disrupts our old belief that abundance is about money and possessions only. The new currency in abundance is about relationships. Meet the author of Abundance Now. So I just made it very relevant. Now that's level one. Level 2 was I always was speaking for my next opportunity on my current television appearance. So on my current television appearance, I was working to create a hook for my next television appearance. Example, when I was on the Steve Harvey Show the very first time, it's the one that went viral. I don't know if you saw the one where I talk about having $11.42 in the bank and having to wrap my son in Pampers. Well, when I was on there, I did what's called the dip. So I'm going to teach you something. You probably already know this. I'm not sure if you've studied. I do a dip, and the dip is where you are an expert, but you show a time when it was really sad and really bad, and then you come back out and say that's why you're committed. So you come on as an expert, you're up here, you talk about a very dark time, and then you come back out and you tell them that's why I'm on this mission. Well, if you notice, what went viral was the 3 minutes and 28 seconds on the Steve Harvey Show where I was talking about my dip. Society, the world wants to know about your dip. I always say dip, baby, dip, baby, dip, baby, dip. And when you dip, people will be attracted to you. So the Today Show called me, and I thought they wanted to interview me because of my partnership with Steve Harvey. They said, oh no, we're not interested in that at all. We want to hear your story again. So they called me on the Today Show just to hear my dip. Now, I gave them the value the first time I was on the Today Show, where they called me back again and again and again. And so when you get on because you have something relevant. But when you get on, share your dip, because it's in your dip that the society is going to fall in love with you. So they fell in love with me online, and they fell in love with me on TV because of my dip.
Wow. I love that.
And you'll see it all through Abundance Now. All through my book, Abundance Now, you'll see dip after dip after dip, financial dip, physical dip, relationship dip, because in your dip, you're letting your audience know that you're the right person to teach them.
And so were you kind of seeding that, knowing in that interview that would be your thing that would get other interviews? Or?
Absolutely. All intentional. Absolutely. And if you go back and you study, you go on Google, you go on YouTube and you study Lisa Nichols, you will watch and you will see in almost every single interview I do a dip. Because otherwise I'm just expert talking to expert. Well, all your people are here. That's why they're watching you. They're all here trying to get to where you are. So if you stay here, I'm so smart, come check out me on my mountaintop. The atmosphere and oxygen is good on my mountaintop. Who can freaking relate to you? You got to go in your dip, because in your dip, you're going to pick up all of your people. They're somewhere in that dip. They're not beneath you, but they're in some type of struggle or aspiration or desire. They're either looking to become an author, afraid of becoming an author, wanting to become an author, writing to become an author. So you got to do your dip. I dipped you when we first got on. I did the dip when we first got on. You brought me on here as an expert. The first thing I talked about was overcoming my fear. I dipped you. I dipped you. Dip, baby, dip.
Lesson within a lesson there. That's awesome. Now, for just a second, I want to touch on that first gig, like that, because I know a lot of people, they're like, man, well, if I could get on the Steve Harvey Show, then maybe I could get on the Today Show. But how do I get on the Steve Harvey Show? Or how do I get that first opportunity that opens the door for that?
Right.
Can you speak to that?
Right. So first of all, don't try to go for the Steve Harvey Show. Go for a regional TV show, because there are experts sitting on major national television shows. They have a whole room full of research and analysts who are looking at all the local shows. That's how someone can be a celebrity in Pottawack, Michigan, and all of a sudden they get on the Steve Harvey Show because someone is looking at the news show in Pottawack, Michigan, right? So people always are trying to go for national media when there's a ton of regional media that you can penetrate. So how do you get on that first show? You call them and you send them your press release, but you put together a decent press release. Listen, in this day and age, I believe, this is my opinion, you need to have more than just a physical print media packet. I think the days of just a physical print media packet are over. I think the days of just online print media package is over. I think everyone should have a little bit of video in their media packet. I just believe it. All of my students know it. I tell my students, listen, if you got to make up something so you can get some video, if you got to put something together so you can get some video, you get some video, because personality is everything. People don't just want you to have good content. They want personality. They want some energy. Even if you're not the extrovert like me or like you, Chandler, but you can, people want to hear your conversation. They want to hear you talk, and they want to hear you give more essence to what you're talking about. They're going to want that. And so you can't, even if you do a talking head video, even though I wouldn't do that, I would put 5 people in my room. I don't care if they have to be 5 people in your family. And I talk to them, even if the camera's just faced at you. And I say, listen, life is great. You got to know you can do it. And you give them 3 minutes of you embedded inside of an online media packet. I just believe. And you plaster that media packet around. And then you pitch them. And you don't pitch them one time. You pitch them several times. Listen, I knocked on enough doors where I think someone opened the door just so I could stop knocking. It didn't matter. I got the interview. And they'll say it. Listen, when I would show up for the interview, they go, we know you've been trying to get us an interview for 6 months. Sorry, we were really busy, but we finally got to you now. They'd apologize to me for not saying yes for 6 months. I go, it's all right. I was busy anyway. Heck, I was busy knocking on your door, but I was busy. And so I say, we make the mistake that internet can get us everywhere. We shoot out a couple of requests and we sit back and wait. That's your first mistake, is you sit back and wait. If you put out 5 requests to get an interview, you only have 5 opportunities. But if you put out 50 requests for an interview, you get 50 opportunities. Let me tell you what I did for chicken soup. For chicken soup, I looked at the zip codes that I was going to be in. Then I looked at every television station in that zip code, every print media in that zip code, and every radio station in that zip code. I had a 3-ring binder, Chandler, this thick with media. And I went one by one. I got my best friend. I got my mother to help me. And one by one, we sent out requests to every single media outlet in all 27 zip codes that I was going to be in. It was insane. Now, I didn't get 50%, 60% of the interviews that I requested, I didn't get. But in the 40% that I did get, I was on at least 48 or 50. I can't remember now. 48, I'll say that to know for sure. 48 different media outlets. Before The Secret, before No Matter What, before Abundance Now, before Lisa Nichols was born. Lisa, single mom, was on 48 different outlets because I pound that pavement and I saturated with requests, and I put a decent media packet together. I didn't have much under my belt at the time because I hadn't done much. I'd spoken at schools, and I'd spoken at churches, and I'd spoken at youth agencies. That's all I'd done. I had never written a book before. And most people didn't even think it was the real Chicken Soup for the Soul book. They thought it was like the black version. They were like, is this fried chicken for the soul? Is this chicken soup for the soul with hot sauce? Like, they thought it was like the African-American version of the real chicken. I'm like, no, it's the real chicken soup. It was hilarious. It was hilarious. So people don't have to take you serious all the time. They can minimize you. Don't take it personal. Just keep pounding that pavement.
Love it. Love it. And Lisa, this has been so amazing. I've got one final question for you, and that's, what would be your parting tip or piece of advice for someone thinking about writing and publishing their first book?
I would say to you what I wrote in the introduction of my first book, that every day get up, pray, and ask God to get you out of your own way so that the world can be blessed by who you really are. Every day, wake up, pray, and ask God to get you out of your own way so that people can be blessed by who you really are. Your message, if you believe you have a message in your belly, then you're right. And your message no longer belongs to you. Your message is supposed to come through you to impact and inspire us. So we need your message. Get writing, get talking, get guerrilla marketing, get all of that so that we can be inspired.
Love it. That's such a great place to end. Lisa, thank you so much. This has been great. Your energy, your enthusiasm is contagious. And I just love this interview. So before we head out, where can people go to find out more about you, your books, and what you're up to?
Oh, yes. Thank you for asking. Go to you can go to abundancenownonline.com. That's my book, abundancenownonline.com. So if you go to abundancenownonline.com, you can get my latest book, my greatest book. It's the culmination of all of me. I share a lot of what I share here, but in a lot more depth, take a lot more risk. And then there you can also click on it and you can go to my website where I'll give you a free 28-day program that I do that I just got an email yesterday. This woman said this free program created such a transformation in her life that she had to write us and let us know that she was grateful for our free gift. So I love it. It's not, it's an amazing free gift. You can go to my website, but go to abundancenownonline.com. And then that gives you access to us and step onto our virtual campus any way you want to learn. I'm in my season where someone told me that I've been Michael Jordan for years on the basketball court. I've been Michael Jordan on the speaker circuit and on the writing circuit. And in the last year, I've committed to no longer be Michael Jordan, and now I want to be Phil Jackson. And so Michael Jordan has 6 rings. Phil Jackson has 11 rings. And so I'm interested in creating superstars like you, Chandler, and helping you to become the next best speaker, author, coach that you aspire to be. So any way that we can help, the answer is yes, yes.
Awesome. Lisa, thank you so much. This has been great.
Thank you, sweetie. Have a great day.